Awakening. Sort of. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Philip was shaking her. She screamed hoarsely and constantly, until her eyes finally registered the hay around her, the night outside, Philip's face lit by the stars. Rose. Are you okay, Rose? It was just a nightmare. Then he paused, realizing how ironic and weird that sounded. She blinked for a moment, taking it all in. Then she began to weep. What's the matter? Rose? He put his arms round her and pressed her face to his shoulder. Now someone was finally holding her, but she was too overwrought to enjoy it properly. My gifts, she said, still coughing a little. The fairies gave me grace and beauty and song. That's what Maleficent was trying to trap me with. Beauty and song. Yes, Philip said, a little confused. His deep brown eyes were even darker with concern. He picked a strand of hair out of her face and laid it back with the others. But we beat her. She didn't win. She won't win. No, Aurora Rose said, trying to form the words clearly despite her shakiness and hoarseness. You don't get it. They gave me beauty and song, and then I was left in the woods to grow up for 16 years before being handed over to you. I don't know anything about ruling. I don't even really know what taxes are. I was in the woods in the real world. In the dream world I hid like a mouse and then organized balls and parties. Oh, Philip said. Oh, he said again. Well, my sisters aren't exactly being taught how to lead an army into battle. But they're not an only child, she cried, instantly regretting it. Her throat burned. Even if Maleficent was right, even if my parents were hoping to have a male heir after me, they didn't. Shouldn't they have had some sort of plan B? Well, and I'll bet your sisters are taught something, she went on. I'll bet they know how to sew, or organize the kitchen staff, or... Of course, Philip said without thinking. Bianca's known quite widely for her skill in embroidery, actually. Bridget began to take over some hostess duties after my mother died. My dad said she actually had some quite innovative ideas about how to peacefully handle the tolls on the northern trade route. The princess let out an incoherent, strangled cry of rage. Sorry, he said quickly. What are beauty and song good for? To a princess or a queen? It's not like I could join a wandering band of troubadours. These gifts have nothing to do with running a castle or a country, and everything to do with being a perfect pretty wife for the prince I was engaged to marry when I was a baby. Hey now, Philip said slowly. We fell in love. I know. That's not the point, she said irritably, scratching her hands through her hair like a crazy person. She sort of remembered loving him, but it was strangely second-hand, mixed in with all the other memories that didn't feel quite real. Now she had no idea what she felt for him. She began to weep again, exhausting, racking sobs from a girl with 2 false childhoods and too many memories and no past, grace and beauty and song and nothing more. And of course, despite the muddy tracks of tears down her cheeks, dusty with wheat chaff, and her tangled hair and her strange dress, she was beautiful. Philip hugged her and stroked her hair down. Shh, try to get some more sleep. Or rest at least. We can't go anywhere till the sun comes up, so we might as well conserve our strength. I promise, no more nightmares. The princess didn't want to fall asleep again, but she did, and it was dreamless. The next morning she was woken by something uncomfortably sharp cutting into her side. Irritably she moved aside, and saw it was Philip's sword. Despite her resentment, she couldn't help admiring the delicately traced motifs winding their way up the grip from the pommel, the golden vines and decorated initials, the carefully faceted and inset gems. She cautiously picked up the blade. It was lighter than she had expected, but heavier than she could easily manage. Even to her inexperienced hand it felt extremely well balanced, though it would take force for her to swing it. She could manipulate the tip easily, just a turn of her wrist. She ran her left hand down its sharp edges, feeling metal that was kept clean and sharp, and grew noticeably colder the longer she held it out in the air. There was a tiny recent nick on the left side. She put it down carefully next to Philip. She was stretched beyond her physical limits, muggy-headed, exhausted, and weak. Apparently you did need sleep in the dream world, even once you knew it was a dream. Philip slept deeper than her, innocent of troubling thoughts and incoherent pasts. It was quite a while before his handsome features began to twitch, and his spirit began to surface to the waking world. Aurora Rose watched him, contemplating his boyish face, which had just begun to lean out in the way of a man. Although her mind kept getting stuck on the concept of love at first sight, she could understand being struck by those looks. And already she was slowly being won over by his optimism and general wholesomeness. But to promise yourself forever to someone you had just met? Life in the woods must have taken an even greater toll on her patience and mind than she had thought. Still, some pleasant dream pulled his lips into the tiniest smile. Rose leaned forwards with some idea of trying a kiss. A small one, before he woke up, just to see. But suddenly he was moving, stretching, and running a hand through his hair. The princess hastily sat backwards. He didn't notice. "Morning. Boy, I haven't spent a night in a haystack in years," he said amiably. "You've done this before?" she asked in surprise. The prince looked chagrined. "You sort of chafe under the whole crown prince bit after a while. You sneak out for good adventure with your best lads, hunting, hitting the taverns, waking up in orchard with your head pounding and starving for that grouse you swore you were going to get. Don't look at me like that. I'm not the first prince to do so." She wasn't sure what look her face made. It was an amazing rebellious idea. She had never considered actually running away from anyone, even her aunts, except that one night in the forest. Was your father angry?" "Oh, you have no idea," Philip said with a rueful grin. "He took my sword and bow away and forbade the stables from releasing my horse Samson to me. And I had an extra chapter of Kikero every night for 2 weeks. Kikero! The man couldn't end a sentence if there was a dagger at his throat. I guess there was eventually. But it was totally worth it, though. For me, I mean, not Kikero." They got up, brushed away the worst clumps of dried grass and dirt, adjusted their clothes, and set off again. The village was starting to come fully alive in the morning dream sun. The woodsmen had left a long time ago, but the other men and women were tending their kitchen gardens, heading out to the fields, going to forage in the forest with baskets to fill with berries and mushrooms. The tink, tink, tink of a smoothie cold forging something small echoed across the flat ground. The animals grazed or wandered or dozed or chewed contentedly. A couple of old palfreys hung around a tree, heads together like a pair of gossips. "We could steal a horse," Aurora said slowly. "That would be faster than walking." "No," Philip said immediately. "No, we couldn't." "But it's just a dream. Who cares?" Even as she said it, she wasn't sure if she believed that statement herself. "So we could go steal and kill and plunder and it doesn't matter?" Philip said as if it was something he had already deliberated in his own head. "I don't believe that. We're still the people we were when we were awake. It's not always the result of the decision that's important. It's how we make those decisions. It's the sort of people we are." "Oh, I'm not making any sense." "Yes, you are. I wouldn't know how else to put it. There's more to it for me, though. I've lived 2 lives, and each seems equally real and equally imaginary. I was telling myself before we met, this time, that all I have is my own eyes and hands to tell me what's real. Who knows how long I'll be living in this version of my life? It seems real to me, so I'll act like it, whether it's fairies or castles or evil queens or thorns." She stopped, thinking about the thorns. Had they disappeared under her touch? "Yes? What is it? Thorns?" Philip put a hand on her back, trying to push her along. How her dress had changed. "I want porridge," she said, unmoving. "Porridge? Look, I know you're hungry. I am too. Famished, but we can't linger in the village any more. We can't trust anyone. You've seen that. We'll grab something along the way. Nuts, a grouse maybe. Just talking about one early made me hungry." Aurora Rose shook her head and set her jaw. "In the last few months at the castle, or minutes, or whatever they are in the real world, I started to see things I wanted to see. Pictures of the way the world was before the fake apocalypse was supposed to have happened. I saw a vision of a bunny." "A bunny?" "Yes, a bunny. I wanted more than anything to see and touch a real rabbit, and one appeared. And then the fairies appeared. And then when I was escaping, I sort of wished the thorns that held me would let me go, and they did." Philip looked at her, still confused. "They did?" "Could you please stop repeating the last thing I said and actually listen to me? It's my dream. My touching the spindle caused all this. I'm the first one who fell asleep under her spell. It's why Maleficent had to lie and make up a sort of reason for us all to be trapped together. She doesn't have complete control of this world, or whatever it is. It's part of me. You said so yourself. All right. That makes sense, Philip said in a serious voice, arms folded and face frowny. But what does this have to do with porridge? I want porridge, she said, exasperated. That's all. I wanted a bunny before, and it appeared, and now I want porridge, the way my aunts used to make it on cold mornings, warm and buttery, with rich toasted acorns in it. Acorns? Really? That sounds, it's an interesting gastronomic choice. She rolled her eyes. We lived in the middle of a forest, royal prince. It was what we had, and a real treat in the middle of winter. Then she proceeded to ignore him. She closed her eyes and cupped her hands. She prayed and wished and imagined and begged. Philip stayed politely silent, although he did look round, sigh a little, and do all sorts of other things to obviously fret over the passage of time. She tried to call up the feel of the wooden bowl in her hands. It warmed almost like flesh where the wood was thin, and the heat of her fingers and the hot porridge mingled. She summoned the smell, a mix of dairy and things of the earth and the tall green grass in the woods. Sometimes there was even a dollop of honey on top. She thought so hard she felt like she had to go to the privy. Her concentration faltered for a moment when she distractedly wondered if that had ever happened to Maleficent when she was performing an incantation. But after a few seconds she was back in her dream of porridge. Time passed. Good Lord! The smell in her head was giving way to a real scent in her nose now, with even that faint, almost unpleasant, burnt smell the acorns sometimes gave off. She smiled and opened her eyes. In her hand was a cracked wooden bowl full of porridge, just like she remembered. Can you get me some eggs and a chicken drumstick? Philip asked eagerly. Maybe a tankard of beer to go with it? Eat the porridge, greedy bird, she said, smiling. Oh, all right, he said with a sigh. It's certainly a lot better than nothing. Well done and all. Shall we use our hands? She tried to summon 2 spoons, but which ones? The big wooden paddle Merryweather stirred the soup with? Or tiny teaspoons for fancy afternoons? Or... Each one flitted up in her mind and then disappeared. She shrugged apologetically. I can't concentrate. Too hungry. Well, this won't be the first time, Philip said, wiping his hands carefully on his cape. Let's dig in! They did, giggling. As she licked the first scoop and the warm, familiar cereal filled her mouth, so too was she filled with a warmth and happiness that she hadn't known in a long time. Interlude. I never realized just how infinitely boring the prattle of human teenagers was, Maleficent drawled, but her voice was even thicker than irony required. She seemed slow, like a mechanical bird winding down. I hope we don't have to put up with much more of their fascinating discussion of philosophy and the nature of reality, or the culinary delights of porridge. I thought the part with the porridge was fairly interesting, Leon spoke up, perhaps emboldened by her mistress's weakness. Especially the part where she summoned it out of the air. Maleficent's yellow eyes flicked towards her. Yes, that was interesting. And troubling. Who knew the girl had it in her? You didn't, Leona pointed out tonelessly. There was much more to her than you originally thought. Considering how she's evaded all your traps, even the particularly clever nightmare inside the nightmare. It'll be harder to kill her now that she's beginning to unlock the power of her own dream world. I don't need to kill her, Maleficent said with a satisfied smile. All I need to do is delay her. She has 1 hour and 2 minutes to figure out how to defeat me and wake up. If she is in my power when the clock strikes 12 and the next day begins, I win. But you're right, Maleficent said thoughtfully, swirling the green and red liquids in the orb of her staff. It might be time to step up the direct assault on her personage. I need the work of my cleverest, strongest servants. Irregual, Slunder, Agwabex, to me! Large, slow-moving, grinning black forms congealed from the shadows in the corners of the room, and Leona's opaque eyes might have shown a hint of concern.